All right, Brandon. Actually, before I even hit record, I should have asked you pronunciation on the last name. Is it Fine or Fiend?
Fiend, fiend.
Fiend. Fiend. Fiend. I gotta
Yes.
do like a little montage of you filming at the bass event and put that song on it or
Some
something.
Travis Scott. Some Travis Scott. I could be down with that.
Exact. That could go hard, man.
It could. It could. It could.
Like that would go very hard. But yeah, we'll see if this all works. It was funny. I was about to hit record on this or about to like send you the link to join, and then I noticed there's like a red button or like a red light on the back of my microphone, and I'm like, shh, I'm such an idiot. I didn't even charge my shit. Like I feel like I'm still getting my life back together after the Florida swing there.
Yeah.
But
When did you get home?
I got home on Monday.
Okay. Oh wow.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's right. Because
Yeah,
you were
because
talking on Sunday.
yeah, Lee made the cut on Saturday. We got back to the house Saturday after weigh-ins.
Mhm.
I had to shoot interviews with Lee, and it was like an absolute shit show trying to get interviews done before the sun. We had like 30 minutes before the sun went down. I needed to get two events worth of interviews done in
Oh.
that time frame before the sun went away. And then our trailer home that we were staying at had a like shop that wasn't owned by the people who were renting from, owned by some guy who owns like a electrical company or something. It was a Saturday, dude. They had all their guys there. They had a damn pressure washer running. They had two 18-wheeler trucks running. They were banging something in the shop, like making noise. Dude, it was like the most but we had no choice. I was like,
Yeah.
I had already missed Caleb and Logan. I literally drove past them leaving the wait or takeoff in the morning. So they were gone back to Louisiana. So I missed them because we didn't have a minute to sit down and like take a moment to ourselves and get what I needed for Lee's episodes done. And all I had was that 30-minute little window, and I just made it work. And I'm in the middle of editing it all right now, and it actually ended up being okay. Between the lav mic and then I like positioned Lee's truck in between us or in between the shop and us, and it like kind of muffled the noise. Anyways, it was a shit show, but we got it together.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time out of your day between editing. I know how that goes.
Oh
But yeah,
yeah.
I've done those. I've done those turn and burn interviews, and I mean, really when you're shooting interviews, you're trying to evoke some sort of emotion or tell some sort of story or get
Hmm.
something out of somebody. So to push it in a short time frame is not an easy feat, and sometimes it'll bite you in the ass on the editing when you get down to the computer and you're like, I really needed this phrase, and
Oh yeah.
yeah, just the grind of a camera guy, man. You know the deal.
Yeah,
Um,
we made it work, but and he was getting pelted by like all the mosquitoes decided to come out. It was
oh,
the
of course.
witching hour for mosquitoes, so I'm sitting there trying to ask him like philosophical questions, trying to get like I'm like, dude, like
Yeah, something
imagine
deep and
I literally
gritty.
was setting the scene for him like Lee, like man, imagine your voiceover right now with some like intense music. We got some slow mo, like I'm playing around with the FX6 slow mo now. Like I got 120 again. It's amazing. And imagine some like slow mo shit over you, like talking about what we're talking about. Like one of the questions I had was like, "What does fishing do to your soul?" Like really like intense. Like I want it to be deep. Meanwhile, he's getting eaten alive by mosquitoes. The friggin' trucks are running. The light
Oh,
is disappearing. I was like, oh my God. But anyways, we made it work. But dude, like, are you doing more video work now with the stuff you're doing with DUTV? Like, is
oh,
that where the some of that interview stuff you're talking
yeah,
about is coming
by
from?
far, by far. So kind of, I mean, long story short, my career obviously started with photography, and that's all
Yeah.
I ever. I mean, I started when I picked up a camera when I was 14,
Hmm.
and then now I'm 22. I'll turn 23 this year, but so a lot of years later. But when I was 18, when I moved out to Colorado, my connection to move here was from gentleman Jake Latondras. A lot of people
Yep.
know him. Him and I met when I was 15. He flew out to California where I was living, and he kind of by default he became my mentor.
Hmm.
And I'm I'm forever grateful for that. So when I moved out here to Colorado to work for him, and from that day he told me, he was like, the industry is going to video, and that's where it's going, and because of the way social media was structured at the time, and even still to this day, I mean it's 99% video.
Mm,
So that's where a lot of my work is from. I'd say 95% of my work now is all video work. Very rarely do I get to shoot photos actually um, for work. But
mm,
it's awesome, and that's yeah. So a lot of the Ducks Unlimited stuff now, I'm working with a gentleman named Colin Mulligan, and he's a great producer. He's very smart and business oriented. So he kind of carries the entrepreneurial side, which I'm not good at, and I carry the creative side, which he's not good at. So it kind of
mm.
works. Um, and yeah, we work well together. And the Ducks Unlimited stuff is a lot of fun. You're telling stories about conservation, and it goes so much further than ducks, right? Like, for example, we did something in Florida 2 years ago where we were talking about the Everglades and how the filtration system actually affects the red tide. So then we're talking about so then we go offshore fishing, and we're talking about the black grouper, and I mean whatever other offshore species of fish is out there. I mean the Ducks Unlimited dollars affects, I mean, Lake Okeechobee, a lot of major river chains in the United States. So it's been a lot of fun to learn about that, and that comes from interviews. I learn all that stuff through interviews and the people I meet. So it's been an incredible experience learning the side of video that can also learn the side of people.
Are you involved in a lot of the pre-production work on a show like that, with
Yeah.
trying to come up with what storylines you guys need to pull for the location you're at? Like,
Yeah.
what walk me through that, if you're a part of that. What does that kind of process look like?
So there's three series that I'm a part of. There's DU Nation, there's DU Conserve, and there's DU TV. The pre-production stuff for DUTV, I'm more of a second shooter for DUTV, they so that's a different production company, but I go on those shoots, and sometimes they line up in same locations as the DU Nation and DU Conserve. The
Mm,
DU Conserve is really what we have the biggest part in, and the pre-production kind of looks like we basically have a list of projects that are going on throughout the United States, and we do our pick, and then we will talk to the regional director of that area. So this last time we were in Oregon, and we were a little north of Eugene, so we talked to the regional director from there. We and then it's a lot of back and forth. Who do we need for this episode? Who do you think would be great? We need to talk about the different subspecies of cackling geese and Canada geese, and so the people that are involved in those projects, from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service as a partner to Ducks Unlimited, our regional director. It's a lot of picking and choosing, and then we all lock down one date, we fly out, we film it, and it's a turn and burn. It's a turn and burn gig, but it's a lot of fun, and it's definitely given me a new sense of what producing actually is, rather than, you know, there's an event here on Lake Cumberland, and we're gonna go film it, and then there's gonna be a story that's gonna happen organically. We have to sort of force a story that's already been written, and we're trying to tell that story, which is the difference.
how cool has it been, kind of getting more involved on that side of things? And is that something you're looking to lean into in the future?
I mean, I think the best thing you can do is be a sponge and just adapt and learn, right? So, um, this experience has taught me the pre-production, whereas mostly everything in my career so far has been post-production and the actual shooting. So
Yeah.
to learn a whole other side of it is super beneficial, and then it actually does help you on the post-production side too, because you've now done the full length from start to finish, and now you have a product at the end of the day that you can be proud of because you were involved every step of the way. So I definitely will lean into it more. Maybe long term, I can hire somebody else to take on the pre-production because it is a lot of work,
Mm,
and it's a lot of logistics and budget planning, and that whole side of things. So it's not the most glorified part of the job, but it is part of the job, and it's important, and it's arguably sometimes more important than the post-production.
100%. It's nice being on, seeing all parts of it. Like
Yeah,
being a
100,
shooter helps you be a better editor. Being a editor helps you be a better shooter because when you're out in the field, you understand like, okay, when I'm editing, these are the transition shots I need to get from one
right.
scene to the next, and so on. But I'm super interested. I always like talking to guys who are a part of a kind of bigger production when it comes to like a TV show or something. So for like DUTV, how does your guys's shoot days look like over the course of a episode? So you're in one location. Walk me through like, do you guys just show up? You're focused on maybe hunting first or whatever, and then you move to a day of interviews and then a day of walking around some of the projects. Like what's a shoot look like for
Yeah.
you guys on an episode?
So so the DUTV and DU Conserve are two very separate entities where
Mm-hmm.
DUTV is about hunting, right? And then DU Conserve, we don't talk about hunting or show hunting
Right.
at all about conservation. So with the DUTV, it's a little more volatile because you're at the mercy of the animal. Just like I mean, same thing with fishing, same thing with
Yeah.
hunting. It's the same thing. You are at the mercy of a wild animal. So for DUTV, it's typically 3 or 4 days, and we're just trying to get hunts that tell some sort of story. Maybe for whatever reason we're in, I mean Colorado, right? And we're talking about the South Platte River, and which is what we've done for 3 years in a row now. We've been on the South Platte River, and the story is the ever changing, river structure and the warm water sloughs and how they affect, bird migrations and that's that whole side of things. Whereas which is why we have to leave more time on the week because if it doesn't go good on day one, then we need day two, three, and four to hopefully pan out. Whereas DU Conserve, the project's already there, the people are there, and the story is still going on. Like the story is about what we're actively doing. So that's dollar where our conservation dollar is going, and that in every episode, that's our mission to tell that story. So um, the next one we're going to do is in Florida on a big project about the river system that is a filtration device, and it's changed over the years. And they're trying to and between the urbanization of just people growing, and we're trying to bring it back to what it was, before the settlers came in and that whole thing. So we're adapting with our ecosystem there, and that project has been going on. So we'll just go film it, talk about it, tell people what's going on, and it's an ongoing thing. So I think that would be the biggest difference of hunting versus not hunting. It really,
Yeah. Yeah, being at the mercy of a wild animal is
yeah, you know the
kind
deal.
of a bad business model when you think about it.
I mean, I don't know. Like my roommate, his name's Colton Caldwell, and he runs Front Range Guide Service. You're familiar. You're with St. Lawrence Outfitters, and
Yeah,
they just hunted out here last year. But yeah,
yeah,
he'll. I mean, I don't know how he does it. Jake and I guided in Nebraska for a while, and it is a tough gig. I mean, you are
hmm
constantly at the mercy of an animal, and you could have it figured out. And if I was a betting man and I bet on hunting, I would be broke.
yeah.
I would be so far in debt because you just can't. And weather changes, and birds change, and deer and fish. I mean, it's just nothing. Nothing is a guarantee. So, um, and that's just life in general, right? It's a big life teacher. I think that's why I'm so drawn to the outdoor industry and the fishing industry is because you're constantly at the mercy of God's grace, and it's at the end of the day, it's not your call, and
Yeah.
it's gonna be somebody else's power. So, um, I think it's great. It's humiliating in a good way, and it can teach you a lot about life in general, just spending time in the outdoors.
And even then, tying it back into storytelling, when you guys are on like a DUTV shoot or anything you've done where you're capturing a hunt, you're capturing stuff on the water with bass fishing or whatever you're doing that involves animals and the pursuit of them, what kind of things that do you do and do the people that you work with do to ensure that even if that goal of killing that elk or shooting a limit doesn't happen, what types of things are you guys ensuring that you get on camera to still be able to tell a story if that ultimate goal doesn't happen?
Yeah, that's a great question. And
Yeah.
when it doesn't happen, it's not easy.
Hmm.
Um, And I think it just goes back to the whole philosophy is of enjoy the process, right? You can't be so focused on the goal that you forget what you're actually doing, because really when you think about it, the climax or whatever you're chasing is such a small part of the actual, you know, story and life in general. It's just so small. It's if you feel like you've reached the top, then you can't grow anymore. So to ensure that we're telling the story is really just whatever that process is. Like for example, maybe it's -35 outside and we're in Western Colorado, and we are just absolutely getting hammered by the elements between sleet and snow and wind and whatever it is. That's the story, right? You are actively going out. There's four guys going out in the middle of the night. I mean, we're scouting for days, and then it just never happens, right? Then what did you learn? Well, we learned that we can handle those situations, and we can be strong in those elements, and we can persevere. So I mean, that's just an example of one of the many times it doesn't work out, right? Maybe we're scouting one day and we have located the biggest snow goose feed you've ever seen, and they've been going there for 2 weeks straight. Then the next day you go there and they don't, right? The story is,
Mhm.
well, you can't rely on an animal. You can't guarantee anything, right? So
Yeah.
to tell a story, it's all situational. To answer your question, there is no guarantee, and that is the fun part. It's
Yeah.
basically gambling.
Yeah. No, it's crazy. Like I've been a part of some shoots and heard other guys go through this as well, where they travel to a destination with a crew of guys. They are in pursuit of an animal or some angling pursuit or whatever it is, and it doesn't happen. And all of a sudden they scrap the entire episode, and that just I can't believe that. It's like
Yeah,
there's still a story there, whether it's like yeah, things that went wrong like what ended up happening on that trip, just the trip in general, the like what went into even getting there and going through what you did. There's always something to pull from, and sometimes when things don't happen and it throws you a bit of a curveball, that's sometimes like the best stories that come out of it.
yeah.
So I never, if I was ever in a situation where I was producing a show and that type of stuff would come up, I'd always make sure that I'd still have enough ammo in the footage that we got to be able to put a good story together in the form of an episode. Because
I'll tell
it,
you one of my favorite episodes I've ever filmed has was actually when the goal wasn't reached, right?
mm-hmm,
We were in North Carolina. It was 2 years ago. We were filming a DU Nation, and it was about the blue marlin fishing. And so Ducks Unlimited has a big
damn,
part of this about the Billfish series, which is where we had
okay,
the Big Rock tournament in North Carolina, Morehead City.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
So I go out. Me and Colin go out for 7 days. We do this tournament. We're going on boats. People are fishing, and so the rule is the first angler to catch a blue marlin over 500 pounds wins $750 million. Or sorry, $750,000, almost
damn,
$1 million.
the
Now,
$1 billion. Where do I
now the
sign up?
now the winner of the tournament wins 1.5 million. So
No shit.
that's the kind of money that's in that game. I mean,
Wow.
you're going on $1 million sport fishing yachts,
Yeah.
and 200 of them, and you've got a clock. Long story short, by the end of the tournament, uh, it's the last day. It's 11 o'clock at night. So they had the rule is if you hook a blue marlin before 3 o'clock, you can fight that fish until you land it. So
Wow.
lines out of the water at three o'clock. But if you call in and say, hey, we've got one on the line, then you can continue fishing for that one fish, or at least reeling it in.
Yeah.
Um, this fight lasts, off the top of my head, I want to say it was a 6 hour fight. And by the
God.
time they got back to the weigh-in, it was 11 o'clock at night. There's, I mean, 10,000 people at this place. It is packed. Like cell phones aren't
Oh
working
my
because
God.
there's so many people. Like it is huge, right? And the person leading this tournament had a 450-pound blue marlin. So the 500 mark still hadn't been hit yet,
Yeah.
and there was rumors and whispers that this was a big blue marlin and it was going to win. They weigh the fish, they put it up, and it's got two shark bites out of it. And then all of a sudden, like there's a lot of disputing, like what's going on. Like We put the thing on there. It's clearly humongous. Like it's
Yeah.
clearly humongous. Like it's gonna break 500. It's gonna win the tournament. It's gonna be like the biggest thing anyone's ever seen in this tournament. And
Yeah.
then the fish gets disqualified because of those shark bites.
No
Uh,
way.
IGFA rule, I think number 72 was the flesh can't be mutilated prior to boating the fish because
Oh
uh,
my.
I mean what happens is that shark bites the tail, bites a chunk out of the fish, then all of a sudden, the fish dies and you're catching a dead fish, which some may say is harder because it becomes dead weight, but
Dead weight. Yeah.
it still changes the catch. So that big payoff
Mm.
of somebody winning a tournament in that way never happened, right?
Yeah.
We but the whole time we were there, and this was kind of in the back of our heads the whole time we were trying to build this story, is there was kids, little kids all over the place just sitting there dreaming like they want to be that guy. They want to be the people fishing for these blue marlins. They want to be the people running those boats. They want to be the ones running these charters. So the story was actually not about the fishing at all. It was about the kids and growing into this ecosystem and this lifestyle, and that was the dream. So
Cool.
we titled the film "Chase a Feeling" because all those kids were chasing a feeling, and same thing with those adults. They're just chasing a feeling of
Yeah.
that blue marlin bite. So to kind of go back into under your segment of like how do you tell a story when it doesn't happen, that's
Yeah.
one situation where we did it, and it's by far my favorite film I've ever done. It has nothing to do with bass fishing or hunting, so like I have
Yeah.
no idea what I'm
That's
doing in
so
this.
cool. I
Yeah.
had no clue that dude, that's such a like foreign world to me. I had no clue that was a thing. Like I knew there was like billfish tournaments and stuff, but like just like some people might think about bass fishing and the Bassmaster Elite Series where they don't even it doesn't even register to them. That's me with this. I
Yeah,
gotta
same.
check that out. That's
Like
cool.
I had never been offshore in that scenario, and then all of a sudden I'm on a $20 million sport fishing yacht, and I'm
No
like,
way.
I am out of my element right now. And then, I mean, the closest way I can describe it, it is hours of boredom followed by minutes of chaos when you do hook one,
Yeah.
because the second you hook one, they're backing down the boat. There's water blowing over the back. I mean, and it's hour
Wow.
long flights. You've got guys in a chair just reeling and pulling, and I mean, and when that fish jumps for the first time, you were like, "Holy cow, I am out of my element." Like it
Wow.
is insane. I would say, I mean, I love to chase adrenaline rushes. Like I just love it, right? Like this last year in Alaska, I got charged by a grizzly bear, and I was loving it, and I don't know if that's a good thing, but I did love it, and
Yeah.
same thing with the blue marlin. When that thing jumped for the first time, you're like, "Oh my gosh!" Like that is insane.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, just cool stuff. Just and that's the thing, right? With this line of work, you do things that you find yourself in situations you would never otherwise find yourself in, right?
Yep.
And I know you're probably the same way.
Oh, big time. But when you find yourself in a situation like that, you're on some giant sport fishing boat that you've never been, like you haven't been a part of any of that. You don't know the sequences of the event when it goes down, how it's going to happen, where to position yourself. When you're in a situation like that where you're thrust into somewhere in a situation that you're not familiar with, what kind of things do you kind of go back to and rely on where you just go through like your checklist in your head of like, okay, I need this, this, and this to put something together. Like what kind of went through your head in those situations where you kind of went back to your roots a little
Yeah,
bit on what you knew you needed to get?
I think from a just a technical standpoint, my three go tos is okay: wide shot, hero shot, tight shot. I think
Yeah.
those are just my default. So I mean, you set the scene, and then you go to your whoever is the character, then you get your tight shots of B roll, whatever is going on. Line screaming, you get a tight shot of that. I mean, those are from a technical standpoint, that's my default. I think that's, and then after that, I just see it how I'm filming like I'm seeing from the first time, which I was like I and
Yeah.
sometimes I think that's a good thing because like I'll go into a situation like a waterfowl situation where I've done it a million times. So like
Yeah.
I know what to look for. Whereas there was a guy that came out this last year that he was also filming. He had never been hunting before, and he
Mm,
filmed that I would never otherwise do, and I loved it, and it was
yeah.
refreshing. So in a way, I'm jealous of people that are doing it for the first time because they're seeing it what the things they think are cool or the things that their eye is drawn to.
Yeah.
Um, and like for a sport fishing yacht, like I'm drawn to, I mean, how big and tall, like the captain's nest up top, like I love that. Like I'd never seen that before, so like
Yeah.
I filmed that, right? Whereas, I mean, even one of the anglers was like, "Why are you filming the crow's nest? Like we're washing the water over here, like
Yeah.
whatever."
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say just from those are my defaults, and then after that, like if I have people in the shot, I just tell them, explain it to me. Like I've never seen this. Like tell me what's
Yeah.
going
Yeah.
on. And that not only helps me, but it helps me what to film, and it also helps if it makes the show. Like it helps the viewer understand what's going on.
Yeah.
Um, so from a technical standpoint to an actual storytelling standpoint, I think those are my defaults.
Yeah, I love that. How I asked this episode hasn't come out yet, but Nick Puig or Pujic, depending on how you pronounce his last name, he's been in the game for like I want to say 30 plus years, filming everything from fishing, hunting, anything in the outdoors. And I asked him that same question about, dude, how do you like spice up your shots? Like you've been in countless bass boats. There's only so many angles you can get in a bass boat, for example. Same thing with the waterfowl blind. What are some things that you do to not make it so monotonous since you've done it so many times?
Um, what was his answer? I'm curious because I would love to know.
It was I loved his answer. He said, "I don't. It's he's like at this point it's boring to me." And he said it in a
Really?
more articulate way, but
Yeah.
that's kind of the point he was getting at was like I have done this a million times, but that's what people are hiring me to do.
Yeah.
So, I'm there to almost replicate what I've done in the past and maybe for fun he said he'll mix things up here and there whether it's a new lens or just like some kind of little constraint that he puts on himself that day, but for the most part he's like, dude, I just go through my checklist of stuff that I know works and get her done.
Yeah.
And that kind of spoke to me a lot because I felt like even in the last 2-3 years, like shooting for Lee for example, where I'm in the same boat.
Yeah.
I'm there's only so many angles I can get, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And to me it was like, all right, how do I keep pushing the pace on this and making it better and making it new and exciting, but that isn't always the like needed. Like just
Yeah.
if you're making cool stuff, just like replicate it, dude. Make it the same if and try to make it better through editing or whatever, but if you're making cool stuff, keep it going because it's working. Do
Mhm.
you have this
No,
that same mindset around it?
okay. Here's my take. I think yes, for some scenarios, like if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I think that's
Mm-hmm.
phenomenal. If it's working, continue.
Yeah.
I I always want to push my own boundaries. Like I
Mm-hmm.
always after I get a project done, I'm never happy with it. Even when I'm somewhat happy with it, like I'm never
Yeah.
satisfied. So I'm always looking for something else, and I try to draw inspiration from, I mean, anything, like, whether it be YouTube or a movie I watch or a show, and they
Yeah.
do a cool lighting technique or an angle. I'm always looking for that kind of stuff, and I'm always trying to implement it into my own style and my own work. So, I mean, I can't pull two projects of mine that look similar. I feel like they all look different. And I think that's just because when I actually get down to editing, when I get down to shooting, like I'm always doing something different because I'm trying to find, maybe I'm still early in it. Maybe I'm still looking for something that consistently works for me, or
Yeah.
maybe how I'll always be. I don't know. So my take is I don't I maybe I haven't got to that point yet. Like I've never thought of something that's like I need to do it the same exact way and do the same angle or do, the same thing. But with that being said, I'm also not on a bass boat like you guys are, whereas I'm the live cameras, right? So I really
Yes.
don't have a
That's
choice.
different.
I
Yeah.
really don't have a choice. Like I have to do, maybe I retract my statement. It does look the same when I'm on the same boat, right? Um,
Yes. Yeah.
but for you, I want to know because when I was doing, I used to do Auburn University's bass fishing team,
That's right.
their YouTube series. So I was doing stuff similar to what your style was similar to what you were doing. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I want to know what's it like for you? Like, are you doing boat to boat, or are you in the boat, or like kind of how does is every tournament the same structure for you, or is it sometimes
For
different?
Pretty much, like the only time I'm really doing any on the water coverage is one, the last practice day before the event starts. I'll always ride with Lee the entire day, and just capture the practice day. But for tournament days, I'm only on the water with him in his boat when he doesn't have a marshal. So we
Mm,
don't really mess around with trying to hire camera boat drivers and stuff. If the situation does come up, like last year at I think it was Toledo Bend, first event of the year, um, we had a camera boat driver because it was Logan's buddy whose place we
mm,
were staying at, and he's like, "Dude, I got my boat. Like, I can take you out." And I was out every day, and to
yeah,
me, I was like, I loved it
yeah,
because it's so much better than just watching GoPro footage.
yeah.
So,
And see, this,
um, it's and it sounds like this year there's going to be a few scenarios like at Sabine River and Fork where some friends are going to be around with their boats and be able to take me out. So
yeah,
yes, in an ideal world, I get out on the boat and capture ideally the boat to boat stuff because just logistically it's a little better.
mm,
Keep him doing his own thing, keep all my shit out of his boat, like
yeah,
my and reduce the potential for disaster if he's tripping over gear,
yeah,
trying to land a fish. But yeah, that's I'm
yeah.
in the boat when the opportunity comes up. So
Yeah, I haven't. That is a legit fear. Okay, like
yeah,
if an angler loses a fish because his line gets wrapped around my camera or he trips over my
dude,
bag,
yeah,
I don't know what I would do. I really don't. And it's funny. It hasn't happened, and I knock on wood, it won't happen.
yeah,
Um, and I'm gonna tell the story. Hopefully, Hunter is watching this. Hunter Shryock. The first time I was with him, it's like a running joke we've had for 2 years. We're on Murray, and he's having a great tournament, right?
yeah,
And the second he sets the hook, and I don't know where it's coming from. I think he might have had a past experience, but the second he sets the hook, the only thing he's saying to me is like, watch that camera, like stay back, bro." And I'm like, he's on the trolling motor, and I'm by the motor. Like I'm like,
yeah,
do you want me to move? Like, what do I do? And like, but when he starts landing the fish, like he's landing a fish, and I mean, way back. I'm
yeah.
right way behind him. I'm not even close, and he's like, "Make your way back, get way back." I'm like, if I take another step back, I'm in the water, bro.
No
Like,
way.
so so the big one he caught, he did that, and they posted it online, and the comment section, it was funny. I had a great time. I
Yeah,
love Hunter. He's a great dude, but now it's our running joke. It's like way back, bro. Get
yeah,
way back. Um, but yeah, it's stuff like that. But yeah, so when I was doing Auburn, the boat to boat stuff, that's all I did. We even practiced
yeah.
it. We
Lucky.
had like
Yeah,
we had a person that was like hired the whole season, and he traveled to the tournaments with us.
that's cool.
Um, so yeah, it was cool. But the boat to boat stuff for me is like that's all I did. I was never in the boat with the
Yeah,
anglers. Like I never knew. The Auburn stuff was really cool. I'm glad I did it, and it was my first time ever being on a bass boat was when I was filming their stuff. So that
no
I
way. Okay,
literally had
cool.
no idea what I was doing at all. I still don't. Like, I I'm so bad at bass fishing. It's not even funny. Uh, but I never went to college, so that would be my closest experience to like a college experience. And the boys at Auburn were just fantastic. And that was
Yeah,
when Logan and Tucker were still there. Rob, there was people from all
that's
over.
cool. Yeah,
Uh, I mean, it was just an incredible experience. So, and to have like a group of guys that were so tight like that, and they just love fishing so much, it really gave me the appreciation for it. Like that was my kickstart into the fishing industry was from Auburn, and
yeah,
I didn't know anything about it. Like I didn't know. Like my grandpa watched Bassmaster when he was growing up. My dad did, but I never did.
yeah,
I did. I was all 100% waterfowl, and then all of a sudden, like I'm doing the bass fishing stuff. I'm like, this is just a whole other world that I've never even acknowledged, and it's incredible.
yeah,
Now here we are, 5 years later now, and it's
yeah,
it's it's where we're at today, and I think it's awesome. I really do. I really love the Bassmaster series. It's incredible.
yeah. You mentioned not going to college. Like, what was your, I guess, unconventional path? So, like, obviously, you started picking up a camera, shooting photos in the waterfowl space when you were like 14, 13, 12, or whatever it was, and started gaining momentum there and had a big passion for it. But when it was time to, like, in your senior year of high school and everyone's picking colleges. Everyone's doing that. What was going through your head at that point? Is that when you hooked up with Jake and decided to move out to Colorado? Like,
Yeah.
walk me through that progression and kind of what was going through your head at that stage of life? Because I, it's stressful, man. Like when you're that young and people are doing something that's more of a traditional path, and all of a sudden you're like, I don't know if I want to do that. Like, what was going through your head when you were at that stage?
Um, well, April 2020, I was a senior in high school. They told us we were going to have 2 weeks off
Oh
of
my
school,
god.
and then we never went back, ever. I mean, we never had a graduation. We never had the
Yeah.
closure. We went all online. And April 2020, I forget what day it was. April 14th, I believe, 2020. Um, they said we were going to go all online, and I never touched a school assignment again. That was the last time. I never touched my computer for a school
Wow.
assignment, whatever. Because they told us, they were like, I had A's and B's, and they were like, well, the lowest your grade can go is to a C. I was like, perfect. That's all I need. So I was like, I know I'm not,
Wow.
because I knew I didn't want to go to college. I knew I that was not my path, and I was going to pursue this camera, whether I failed miserably
Mm-hmm.
or kind of, I don't know, like I still don't know the trajectory because it's ever changing. Every year is different.
Yep.
Um, but I knew that I wasn't gonna go to school for it, and that's when I called Jake, and I told him, I was like, listen, I don't know what I'm doing. I know I want to pursue this camera stuff. What should I do? I was really just asking what he would do if it was him,
Yep.
and that's when he, on that same phone call, he said, if you move out here, we can work together, and
Mm.
that's when I had to convince my parents to be okay with what I was telling them. My
Yeah.
dad, it took some convincing on my mom. I'm not gonna lie, but then by June that summer, I was on the road, and I got a place out here and met up with
Yeah.
Jay, and we started doing shoots. And we went to Nebraska and started working there, and that was my unconventional journey. And it's been, I can't imagine my life going any other direction, right? I can't picture myself being in college or going to do the schooling, because I know that I love what I do so much. And I said this when I moved out. I was like, I'd rather be broke and happy than rich and sad. So
Mm-hmm.
going to college was going to make me rich one day, but I was going to be miserable doing it. I don't have any interest in doing that. I think that this photography and this videography stuff, and telling stories, and chasing light, and meeting new people, I just, it's a blessing for sure. And it's by a higher power, no doubt.
Yeah. What what were the bullet points that you rhymed off to your mom to convince her that this was the right move?
I don't remember the actual, I do forget the conversation, but I do think what helped was she watched me for 5 years before, or 4 years before that,
Yeah.
ride my bike every single morning before school to a lake and take photos, and then after school. And it's just the consistency, and like, it wasn't like a phase. Like, for example, if I had just picked up a camera 2 months ago and I was like, okay, I'm gonna go move
Yeah.
away, and this is gonna be my life now, like, I don't think that dang it.
You on your phone?
No, I'm on my computer.
Oh,
I
what?
was-
That's
um,
hilarious. I didn't know it. I thought it only did that shit on FaceTime. That's hilarious.
Look, there it is again.
Oh my god, that's awesome.
um, but yeah, I just think just being consistent, it had consumed almost all of my time. Beside, I mean, I played cross country and baseball, and I mean, the reason I picked up a camera was because I had to quit baseball.
Yeah.
But I did other things, and I was just always I was always a misfit with what I did, because in high school there is like the standard, right? You either play sports, or whatever you do, you're a jock, you're an emo,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
um, there's definitely those stereotypes, and I just didn't fit in any of them, because I
Yeah.
would ride my bike and show up to school and dressed in full camo, smell like mud, and have a camera in my backpack with my textbooks. So
Yeah.
it just wasn't the standard. So the decision to leaving my family was by far the hardest part. I mean, you're 18 years old, and you're leaving everything you've ever known, to go chase a dream. So it's I mean, my mom is a trooper. I know selfishly they would want me to come back, but
Yeah.
they've been super supportive and they've never told me, even though I know they want to. So
Yeah.
I'm blessed to have an incredible support system, and to make those decisions on their end is not easy. I mean, I can't imagine what I would think if I had a little person I was raising for 18 years one
Mm.
day saying, "Hey, I'm leaving." I
Yeah.
don't know what that would do to me. It would crush me. Um, but yeah, that's the sob story. I love my mom. I love my dad. We still stay in touch, so it's all
Yeah.
good.
How have you been able to um how do I ask this? I guess going out there and being alone, not having family around. I'm sure you left a bunch of friends back home too. Being in that environment, you're all of a sudden out of school, you're working full time. What was that transition period like for you in those first few years? Just being out on your own. Like did you right away try to find like-minded people? Obviously, you had Jake by your side,
Yeah,
which he's like, we'll talk more about him. I want to get
yeah.
a whole section on him. But what was that time like for you? Was it lonely?
Yes, yes, that
Yeah.
was. Um,
Yeah.
you know, you go from you go from high school, which is very social. You see
Yeah.
friends every day. I'm not even giving it a thumbs up. Um,
for for anybody just listening to this on the audio side of things, he keeps doing a thumbs up, and it's,
it keeps
it's like we're on
well,
FaceTime. It
yeah.
does like a thumbs up bubble for some reason. But,
Okay, I'll start
anyways,
over. I'll start over.
okay,
So yeah, you go from high school, and you see people every day, people your peers every day. Then you
yeah,
go into a situation where you don't know anybody. You don't even know where to go get groceries. Like you don't know.
mm,
I mean, I moved into a townhome with three people that were going to CSU that I had never met. Like it was
wow,
like I applied for it. And it gave me three roommates. So
yeah,
then I had that to deal with, and people from all over. It was just there was like yeah, it was an experience. I think it was a good
mm,
experience. I think it was a good teacher. But yes, lonely would be a good way to describe it. But you always the best part about that is I always had my passion to fall back on. Like I was never truly alone because I was doing something I loved, and so I think just that transition phase. And does it ever really go away? Like I still to this day feel like I'm transitioning
mm,
in life. I think every day like there's some sort of transition,
yeah,
and it's always changing, which is good. And it's good to not be complacent. I think it's healthy. So that feeling that I had when I moved out to Colorado 5 years ago is still somewhat a part of me to today. I don't have my roots dug in here. Like
yeah,
so a lot of my buddies we'll walk around at a grocery store and they'll be like, "Oh, hey, Linda, I haven't seen you since I was, 10 years old." Like I don't get those experiences.
mm,
So I do still feel it. But that's the risk and that's the jump that I was willing to take to pursue this life. Now I love Colorado. I do. And I think it's super healthy for me to be able to pick my people, and I think that's another big part of life is like you are who you surround yourself with. So
mm-hmm,
now I've gotten to the point where I've selected some phenomenal and smart people that are my peers that teach me more than I could ever. Any experience we go into, I'm always trying to learn. So it's been
yeah.
great.
So what why do you keep coming back to then when you're in that situation where you're lonely, you're in this place that you don't have roots in. Sometimes work gets tough as well. Like it's not always easy.
Mhm.
What why do you have in the back of your mind that keeps you pushing to keep pursuing what you're doing?
I mean, it's the same thing since I was, 14, and it doesn't matter if I'm here in Colorado or somewhere
Yeah.
in Florida in a hotel room. It's a lot of it. There's a lot of lonely time, so you're with your thoughts a lot. And there's if there's something that's never left you, and it's something that's been your rock and your foundation, then it's the same thing with me. Is like if I'm lonely or if I'm ready to learn something, that's normally what I do. Is I'll go research something about photography or
Mm,
interviews or lighting scenarios, or a lot of my time now is editing. So am I really ever? I've always got something to do because it's always hanging over my head. So
yeah.
uh, the editing mostly like that's what takes up my time now. It's so much work that it's you don't even have time to think about being lonely because you've got to do it.
Yeah.
I think that's really a good thing because like you experience things everyone's heard of creative block, right? And everyone experiences it. And my biggest lesson this year, because I've experienced a lot of creative block. With all the projects coming in, and it's just overwhelming. Like it's easy to fall into that trap of like I'm not even inspired. Like I don't even want to look at my computer right now.
Yeah.
Uh, it you have to know whether you are treating it like a business or a passion, and then you have to
Hmm.
establish which ones you're gonna do. So I am now treating this like a business, so I don't have time to the excuse of oh I'm just not inspired. I have to wait till something inspiring happens. Like
Yeah.
there's so much unknown in that. That could be tomorrow. That could be in 2 weeks. That could be in 2 months. I don't have the timeline for that. So the creativity I've learned from me comes with when I actually push through that creative block, I find myself more inspired than I was, if it were to happen organically because or whether I hear a song or see something or
Yeah.
whatever, pushing through that and treating it like a business and it's like no, you are gonna discipline yourself and sit behind this computer and you're gonna do it because you have to, and not because you want to. And I've found myself making uh, stronger edits or stronger whatever content doing it that way because I have to rather because I want to, which is kind of funny to think about,
Yeah.
um, considering videography and photography is an art, and if I were to go tell a painter, hey, you need to paint this, he'd be like,
Yeah.
dude, no, I'll paint when I want. Like
Yeah.
I don't have that choice, and I know
Yeah.
you're probably in the same boat.
Oh yeah, 100%. No matter, and I go through a bit of a process like every day, especially on the editing side. Like when I'm home, I need my office clean. I need to get to it first thing. Like if I got shit that's going on in the morning and I try to sit down and get into the zone and get into like a deep work state late in the afternoon, I know for me it just very very rarely would happen where I can do that. So I know I got to set up my time and my day in a certain way for success. And that's kind of the process that I go through, knowing that I got to get shit done, and this is how I've learned to do it. Do you kind of have
Like
that same? Do you have
for me,
somewhat of
for me,
a pre-game routine or anything?
I do, but it's the exact opposite, right? Where it's like if I
Mm,
have something over my head, right, that I have to do, like I will work at night and I will edit at
yeah,
night until midnight or 2 in the morning. Like that's just for me. I feel the most creative at night. I don't know why.
yep,
Because I try to get it in the morning. It's like, oh, well, I need to go to the grocery store, or I need to go do this, or like I need to
yeah,
go file my taxes. I don't know. Like it's just
mm-hmm,
that stuff. If I have that hanging over my head, because the thing about editing is when I get rolling on editing, there is no hard stop. Like I'm gonna go until
yeah,
I think that it's at a point, right? So
mm-hmm,
and if I had something at noon and I was like, okay, I'm gonna edit from 8 to noon, and I'm gonna stop and get back to it at 2, like I just can't. That's just for me. That's not how it works. But I know for other people, that works for them. So, and I
yeah,
think it's always funny talking to creatives because everyone has their own like little quirks and niches, and we're all
yeah,
weird. We are
yeah,
100%. Any videographer or photographer or artist in general that claims to not be weird is full of shit because
yeah,
we're all weird to a degree, and I think it's awesome. I think that's what makes all of us unique and different.
yeah. No, it's so true. It's funny, like you mentioned the high school thing and like sports or whatever, like that was me too. Like played hockey, like that's all I gave a shit about. But now I would consider myself like a full-blown nerd. Like I
Yeah,
nerd out
yeah,
over camera gear, computers, like my editing station, all
yeah.
the specs that go into it. The new camera I got this year, like I go through every single little setting, and I was never like that before. Like it's
Yeah.
crazy, and then all of a sudden you pick out something that you start to get passionate about, and I guess I'm somewhat analytical when it comes to that stuff now, where like I want to know how it works inside and out before I even get my hands on it. And it's like I would never consider myself a nerd before, but now
I think
I'm a
it's
nerd in like the stuff I'm passionate about. I
yeah.
could give two shits about anything else.
So I want to know. So you played. I've actually never asked you. How did you go from sports to the filming and everything, and then in turn, how did you get hooked up into the Bassmaster series?
Yeah, it's kind of a weird like turn of events, I guess. But like, dude, I'm like the opposite of you. Like, I didn't pick up a camera until I finished hockey, basically. Like, I ended up like going away playing prep school down in Ohio. Like, had dreams of going to play NCAA hockey, and just didn't pan out. Wasn't good enough. The whole deal. Came back home. Was going to college or university here, and was playing junior B hockey. Did that for a year, and I kind of realized I'm like, dude, like I don't love this anymore. I don't love hockey anymore. Really fell out of love with it, knowing that there wasn't a next thing that I was. As soon as that dream was gone, it was like I'm just doing this to do this because it's my identity at that point. And I didn't. It was taken away from school a little bit, and I was like, all right, I gotta cut this off. Cut it cold turkey after my first year at university. Decided to just focus on school and try to figure out what the hell I want to do as a career. At that same time, leading up to that point, was when I started getting into fishing as well. Like, I didn't grow up fishing or hunting or nothing. And it was kind of that same deal where the spark of fishing happened. And soon after that, in doing all my crazy research and nerding out about fishing, I started learning about like, okay, there's some cool content going on here. It was like the beginning days of like Instagram, like I think Instagram literally came out. No, it didn't. I don't know. I'm dating myself now, but I'm turning 30 this year.
No
Uh
way, you're 30?
turning
Dude,
30. Yeah.
what?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah, yeah. 29 still. I'm not there yet.
Dude.
Um so yeah, like at that same time I started seeing some cool content and stuff. I was like, "Oh, maybe like I should pick up a camera and like make that a thing." So, I think me and my brother split on like a Rebel T6i or something. I don't even know the name of it, and started like really getting into it at that point. Progressed from there, started doing some graphic design work and little stuff. I was doing the live streaming for the sports at the university I was at, and started really getting a passion for it. Um, anyways, through that, I got hooked up with a guy here, JP DeRose, who was producing the TV show for a tournament series around me, and I went to a show that he was like a trade show deal or store in store like demonstration of him talking about fishing. And I asked him, I'm like, dude, I want to shoot for you. Like, I've never really messed around with these bigger cameras and stuff, but like, if you give me an opportunity, I'll come out and shoot. So I did that for a few years, got hooked up with some people, ended up working in the fishing industry for a bit. And that's kind of where I ended up meeting Lee, was the company I was working for, sponsored him, got to talk to
Hmm.
him. I'm skipping through a lot here,
That's
uh,
all.
but yeah, I got to know Lee through that, and I basically told him like it was St. Lawrence River. I can't remember what year. It was like 3, 4 years ago. At that event, it was the last event of the year, and at that point, I was like all in on the video photo side of things.
Mhm.
And I told him, I said, I'll quit my job and come shoot for you if we can
Really?
make the numbers work. And he was like, he hadn't really seen my work other than like some product stuff I had done at that point.
Mhm.
And but I was at that event to produce uh, like a little video about the tournament, similar to like what Kings of Bass does with
Okay.
Straight King, where they like I followed around some of our anglers that we sponsored and was just telling the story of the event essentially. And so that was going to be the test. Lee's like, dude, like I'm down. Let's wait till you get this done. Put it out there. I'll check it out. Make sure like it's good enough to what I would want for what I'm looking for, because it worked out where he was looking for a video guy as well. And anyways, that came out. I sent it to him. He's like, dude, this is I like this. He's like, all right, like I'm in, dude. Like, let's talk numbers. We were super open and honest. I was like, this is what I want, blah blah blah. And he was all for it. And we just said, all right, cool. So, but at that time, I knew like I was like, all right, if I make this jump, I'm good till like the fall for like the
At least
first year.
you do something else.
So it was like, all right, but it was enough where I had enough things lined up outside of Lee too, where I kind of like put a whole spreadsheet together, showed my wife, I'm like, this is what I'm planning on doing. And she was so apprehensive. There was a night where we're sitting in the hot tub on our back porch, and I like made the decision that night. I'm like, this is happening. Like, anyways, so ended up quitting my job, ended up shooting for Lee that first year. Uh, Ended up figuring out what my fall was gonna look like, and
Dude,
it's kind of progressed from there. And like you said, like meeting new people and gaining like cool relationships with people. It's own like being around someone like Lee who has good connections in the industry. Also, getting my work out there too was like huge, where all of a sudden
yeah.
people start seeing things and they're like, oh, that looks cool, like who did that? And then
Mhm.
you start making contacts
Networking.
with people, whether it's through social media or just being in it. Like being in it, I talk about a little bit, where you're at the events, you're at the trade shows, you're amongst the people who are the decision makers, and getting to know them on a personal level. So that has been a big propeller to what, like, kind of where I'm at today. And that, along with like reaching out myself, dude, like most of the stuff that I have done has been me writing up proposals, me reaching
Yes.
out to the people, like
Yes.
making the contacts. Like a lot of people just think like, oh, putting my work out there is enough, but dude, like very rarely has it happened where someone has eh, seen my work and been like, I want you to produce this entire thing for me for the entire year. It's like, no, like I have a client that I reach out to and I'm like, this is the plan that I have for what I want to do for you. And let's talk. Like, do you, is that the
That
same
is
for
the
you?
that is the biggest that I think that is the most important thing in anything. I mean, be
Yeah.
ambitious. Be ambitious. And first of
Mm-hmm.
all, huge respect for you quitting your job and just jumping ship like that. Like I had no idea. That was awesome. I have so
Yeah.
much respect
Thank
for
you.
people who are willing to do that.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, be ambitious. I think that you saying, you've had to reach out for almost all of your work or all of your
Yeah.
work. I think that's so true, and I think that
Yeah.
that's a big misconception. With
Mm-hmm.
people, it's like because I'll get people sometimes. It's like, oh, you're so lucky, like you're traveling. It's like, well, put yourself out there and then see what happens. Like
Yeah.
the worst they can say is no, and then it's good for you because then you're not wondering, and now you can move
Yeah.
on,
Yeah.
right? It's like
Yeah.
if you're sitting around waiting around, like it's not going to happen. That goes with anything, right? Relationships or like I've been going to the gym, right? Like the gym is not going to come to me and make me feel better about my body or
Yeah.
make me feel healthier, right? Like I have to go do it on my
Yeah.
own, right?
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with work. I mean, it just goes with literally anything in life. Just you want something, go do it, right?
Yeah.
It's that Tom Brady quote. He said, the fish ain't gonna jump in the boat. You got to go catch them, right?
Yeah.
And that's so true. It really is.
Yeah.
Ironically, here we are on the Bassmaster series, and we watch guys every day. They don't jump in the boat. You got to go
Yeah.
catch.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome that you quit your job like that. I mean, I don't know if
Yeah.
Faith went the right way, but I know it's definitely changed your trajectory.
Yeah, it was a big leap of faith. Looking back, it was literally the worst timing I could have ever created any more uncertainty in my life. I think it was 20, what are we, 2025 now? So it would have been like 2021
Yeah,
ish, 2022. Dude, like there was all the COVID shit going down. My wife and I were getting married, or we had just got married. We had just moved into this house here that we built and just switched into our like full-blown mortgage. Mortgage rates were rising. Uh we we hadn't had the baby yet, but we were planning on it. And dude, it was like the worst time ever. But at the same time, it was the why thing that I talked about with you before is the reason why I had the courage to do that, because I was like, I need to pursue this passion. I need to know for myself that I can either make this work or not. Like, what's the worst that's gonna happen? I got to go get another job somewhere else.
Yeah.
Like, I can do that, but I what I can't do is live till I'm however old, knowing that I didn't take that leap and just kind of
Yeah.
settled for whatever I was doing and just making a paycheck to pay the bills and do that. So
I
for me,
think
I
if more
couldn't live with myself to do that.
I think if more people had that mindset, the world would be a better place. I really
Yeah.
do. I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
there's so many people that, and I can't speak for everyone. I really can't. I mean, and
Mm-hmm.
timing is a huge thing, and everyone's lives are different. But I mean, at the end of the day, like if you, I just can't. I don't want to live a life of wondering, and I don't want to. I don't want to not talk
Mm-hmm.
to that person because I was afraid of what they might say about me, or not. Ask that job or that client what they might think about this. Like I just can't. I can't be sitting there wondering what my days are going to look like and leave it out of my control.
Yeah.
And I think that I do. I think that's had a huge effect on obviously your career. And same thing with me is like I'm the same way. Like, oh, I want to go do something. I'm gonna go make that phone call. I'm gonna go make that introduction.
Yeah.
Um, or at least I try my best. And I think that's really all you can do is try your
Yeah.
best.
What does that look like for you now? Like, obviously, when you moved to Colorado first, you were you working full time for Jake and
Yes.
Latondras
Yeah.
Media? And
Yeah.
how
So
has that progressed? How has that progressed to where you are now? Like, I don't even know. Are you on your own full time now? Like,
yeah.
what does that look like?
So first of all, Jake and I are still very close.
Of course, yeah.
Ironically, when I first moved here, I've bounced around between living situations, and now the house I'm in is literally two streets from Jake.
Oh, that's
So
cool.
it's kind of funny how it's wrapped around. But um, yeah, when I first moved here, Jake, I was very young, 18, doing stupid 18-year-old things, and
Mm-hmm.
he's very smart, and he's normally always right. And for an 18-year-old to like sit there and I'm just like, yes, Jake, yes, Jake. And I really am trying. And then, something happens 3 years down the line that he was trying to teach me 3 years ago. And I'm like, okay, like, yes, you were right. And
Mm.
he told me that when I moved here. He's like, I'm going to say things, you're not going to understand them because you haven't experienced them yet. And that still happens. It happens with my parents. They were trying to teach me something when I was 10. And then all of a sudden it happens when I'm 22. And I'm like, I remember that.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I moved out here. I started working for Latondras Media, and then he was a part of Outfitter in Nebraska, and I by default started working out there. And then that was just to get me by in the meantime until the
Yeah.
media jobs, really.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
I was obviously doing media for that outfitter, but I was also doing a lot of guiding, the deer hunting, like my
Wow.
first my first month on the job, I had never been deer hunting in my life, and I'm taking out a guy on an archery mule deer hunt.
No.
I don't, by the grace of God, I and okay, I'll say this: my experience with wildlife photography helped me out a lot here because you
Of
still got to get the
course.
same distance for a camera, except
Yeah.
now you're doing it with a bow. So it's like I just applied those same things, to the hunting situation, and I scouted this deer for like 2 weeks. Long story short, we ended up shooting it, and it was
Wow.
great experience. I quickly learned that not every guiding experience was like that, but if
Mm.
I were to take my first one, I'm glad it was a success. So I worked for him for 2 years doing that, and then he was the one who got me the introduction with Auburn University because Logan Parks had come to Jake, actually asking Jake if he could come film it, and Jake had young kids and he wasn't able to take the time, and he's like, well, I do have,
Wow.
Brandon. And so
Yeah.
he passed that along to me, and I think it really did work out. And then after that first year with Auburn, that's when something happened with the live cameras, and there was an opening on the job, and Jake basically, this is one of the few times that, or I guess many times of Jake, that he kind of gave me something on a silver platter. And then he was like, hey, you guys should hire Brandon. And I filmed an open kind of as a test run on the
Mm.
St. Lawrence River. And then yeah, by the next year I was a full time with the Elite Series, so it
Wow.
worked out. But Jake, I mean, he has absolutely shaped my life. and taught me things. Every business mentorship detail he's tried to give me has also applied to real life, and it's become life
Yep.
lessons. So,
Yep.
um, yeah, he's great. I can't say enough good things about Jake because he really has. I would not be here without him, without his guidance and his teachings
Yep.
and his willingness to forgive my mistakes as an 18-year-old.
Yeah.
I mean, even I look back at me at 18 and I'm like, what was I doing? I mean, just
Mm.
stupid stuff. And then here I am at all when I'm 25, I'll be looking at me right now like you're doing. What are you doing? And I
Yeah.
hopefully that never goes away. Hopefully I'm always learning. Hopefully I'm never in a spot where I'm like, I wish I was back to who I was 5 years ago. I hope that's never
Yeah.
the case. Um, but a lot of that mindset has come from him for sure.
Jake's amazing, dude. It's funny the way I describe him. His, you remember the Dos Equis, like most interesting man in the
Oh yeah, yeah,
world
yeah, yeah.
commercials? Dude, that is Jake Latondras in a like 100%. Like I te- I messaged him. We were messaging on Instagram like a couple weeks ago, and I don't know how it came up, but that's how I said that I explained him, and he laughed and whatever. But that's how I would explain him. He's like the most random shit will come up. He's like, "Yeah, I did that," or "I
Yeah,
know so and so."
yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah.
it's like
He's
all
like,
this
I was
stuff
in
comes up.
Tajikistan,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
was in South Africa for 14 days. I was like, dude, yeah, like something random will happen. Like, because a lot of when we drive back and forth to these Bassmaster events,
yeah,
we drive to the airport together and
yeah.
rental cars, the whole thing. And we'll see like a sign on the side of the road or whatever, and be like, "Oh yeah, 20 years ago when I was filming so and so in British Columbia," and he'll go on like he'll tell a story, and I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
"Is there anything you haven't done?"
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, it's like the post that I messaged him on was like a story or something where he's like took a photo outside a plane window and said how many countries he's been to, and it was like
yeah,
I can't
all of
remember if
them.
it was 50 something or 100 something, just like a ridiculous number.
How many countries
And,
have you been to, Jake? Yes. Okay.
like, yeah, just wild. But what I guess to go back to your story, like what was maybe do you remember any example of one of the things that he said? You're not going to understand this now, but like this will happen or whatever. Like, what
um.
was a Jake Nostradamus moment for you
Uh,
that
ooh,
came to fruition?
oh, that's a good question. There's a few. Um. Uh. Okay, it hasn't happened yet. Okay, maybe it has. Okay, I'll tell the story and maybe it'll make sense.
Okay.
Um. When I was working for the outfitter, I was driving a company truck and I was driving it way too fast. Way
Mm-hmm.
too fast. Um and I got pulled over and I knew I was gonna have to explain myself to Jake. And
Yeah.
he wrote me a big fat ticket. I mean, it was just a whole thing. And I was on where I was driving was on the ground that we leased. So not only did I put, the company in jeopardy, but I also put the lease in jeopardy, which the entire company depended on, right? For to
Wow.
sustain
Yeah.
the business. And I put that in jeopardy at 18 years old.
Mm.
And he told me I after a while, I mean, it was a really emotional phone call because, the only thing you want to do for somebody like that who's done so much for your life is you just want to make them proud, right?
Yeah.
Um, and the opposite of proud is disappointed, and that's the last thing you want to make, somebody
Yeah.
like that. So, um, it was tough, man. I called him and I told him, I said, hey, this is what I did. This is how fast I was going. This is where I was. Um, I'm fully whatever consequence you give me is exactly what I'm asking. This is what I asked for. This is my
Yeah.
consequence. And he told me that one day you're going to have somebody under you that is going to do this to you. That's going to put you at jeopardy. This is going to happen to you. And I don't have any employees yet, but I do have two younger brothers that are kind of like my mentees, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they've done something very similar that put their life at jeopardy, which puts me at jeopardy because like what am I going to do without my little brother, right? And
Yeah.
and I would be broken. and
Hmm.
and from a business side, it hasn't happened yet, and one day it will, because there's not one thing Jake has said that has not happened. Um, but that would be the closest. That would be the closest thing. A bad experience. It was a bad mistake I made at 18 years old, and it was just stupid, stupid, stupid. And I've had to learn from it and grow from it, and I do admit it. But yeah, I just now I'm way more cautious of how, I feel after that conversation I'm way more in tune of where I am with not
Mm.
only a relationship, somebody's personal relationship, but in a business. And I know that whoever I'm associated with, my actions are a direct cause and effect with them. So that was one of the big lessons that I had to learn luckily at a young age, and luckily he was forgiving, and we were able to move past it. But it's definitely a reminder of what never to do again.
Yeah. Being around Jake, what are some of the maybe other like key lessons that you've learned just in how he operates as a person and with his business as well? Does anything stick out that come to mind
Yeah,
when you
he
think about
will.
that?
Yeah, he Jake will say it how it is. Like, he will not beat around the bush, and he's and that's it's tough, to hear that, right? Like, I'm, you're constantly, not constantly, but if you're messing up, he will tell you, and he will tell you where
Hmm.
your faults are, and it's not easy to hear sometimes, and
Yeah.
especially when I was 18, it's really hard to hear, like, you don't know everything, and you need to stop what you're doing right now because this is going to happen. And I'm still trying to learn from those tough life lessons. But it's those. I think it's good to have somebody like that, because I don't want somebody who's going to be soft and kind of like,
Mm.
oh, well, you should do this instead. Like, no, he's going to put the foot down on you and say you're messing up, and he will discipline you and tell you how it is. I think that's really good of him. And even though it sucks to hear in the moment, I consider it type 2 fun. It sucks in the
Yeah.
moment, but it's fun in
Yeah.
retrospect because you learn from
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Uh, type 2 fun is how I describe Jake.
Yeah. No, it's good. Maybe for people who are starting to have people work under them. From your perspective, having an amazing mentor like Jake and working under somebody like that, what are some ways that he would deal with situations, maybe not as drastic as like the driving situation, but just work in general? Maybe some ways that you've messed up, whether it's you didn't make a deadline or whatever, like situations that would come up where he had to make a decision. How has he dealt with situations like that in terms of like consequences or whatever? Like, how does he go about approaching a situation like that where you still come out of it feeling empowered and not beat down, and like you learn from what you did and you're never going to do it again? What does anything come to mind around that? Because I think it's super valuable for people, whether it's a person in a position of being that boss or whatever, and then on the other side, the person that is working under them, where their boss maybe doesn't deal with situations right and they need to get out of that situation, versus knowing that, okay, I'm in the right place. Like,
Yeah, I
I'm getting
think.
long-winded here, but
No,
what do
no,
you
that's
think?
I'm gonna try to answer that the best I can.
Yeah.
I'm not. Listen, I will never claim to be a great business person yet. Like, I really am trying to learn. I do have great folks around me that
Yeah.
handle a lot of the entrepreneurial stuff better. But at the end of the day, I think you put your business first. And are you going to have somebody that adds value, or is it going to be a liability? Uh,
Mm.
and I think that it, depending on the value you add, is the amount of you might get two strikes, you might get one strike, but like, how much value do you add, and are you willing to learn from it? And I think it's all situational. Like, employees are your most volatile subject matter by far, right? Yeah,
Yep.
people, things come up in people's lives, right? Like, I can't control, you know, my accountant, getting in a fight, after a bar, right? Like, that's just an example. I don't have an accountant, but like, that's
Yeah.
just, that's just saying, right? And then all of a sudden he's in jail, and then he's calling me to bail him out, and then I'm like, okay, like, is this a one-time thing? Is it going to keep happening? Are you
Yeah.
really that much value, or are you going to be, in that place in your life, right? Um, I think it's all situational. And are you willing to learn from it? Are your employees willing to learn from it? And do they value your company and your business as much as you do?
Yeah.
And with the production stuff, right? Like I want people around me that are just as passionate about making a strong product as me. And are they going to, are they maybe they're super talented at editing, but they can't respond to a phone call for 4 days, right? Or
Yeah.
maybe I'd rather have somebody who's more consistent and dialed and actually cares, and maybe isn't as strong on the editing post production side, because that can be taught, right?
Yeah.
Uh, and I'd rather teach them, technical things rather than teach them how to be a better person.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and so Jake really took on a daunting task, because I don't at the time, like I wasn't good at either. Like I was an 18-year-old that really didn't know what I was doing at all,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
from production or life. So I'll forever be indebted in that sense. But moving forward, if I was in his position, I mean, I wouldn't touch myself with a 10-foot pole. And now, maybe now I would, hopefully. But yeah,
Yeah.
I do want people around me that care, and that are willing to grow with me, rather than you know do it for a little while and then move on and call it a day.
Yeah.
I
No,
don't
I
know if that
love it.
answers the question or not. I was trying to pick it apart.
No, that's good, dude. I love it. I'll change subjects a little bit. Like, walk me through a year in your life now when it comes to your work. Like, this coming year in 2025,
Hmm.
what does each quarter, like, what's your year look like when it comes to client work?
Yeah, so two biggest client by far, Ducks Unlimited, and that takes up. I mean, from January till December, there will be some form of Ducks Unlimited work in every month, because we
Yep.
have we have a schedule that we have to produce, and release one episode a month. So between the Bassmaster stuff and the Ducks Unlimited stuff, I am more busy than I've ever been.
Okay,
Um,
cool.
and it's awesome. It really is. And now we're getting to the point where we're starting to look into doing some marketing for social media brands, and this last year I had a great experience working for a bourbon company in Lexington, Kentucky. I worked
I
there for
remember that.
I was doing that for about 4 months, and then everything. It was a great experience. I learned more about business in 3 months than I had my entire life. I was in meetings that I had no business part being a part of, and it was really eye opening. But that trajectory has really shaped, how do you structure a brand with CSF models and all sorts of acronyms that I could go
Yeah.
on and on about. But now I've gotten to the point where, okay, I know that I have an expense sheet that I have to fill out every time we do a trip. I know that I have to call this many people. I know I have a marketing tracker for this. We have this client that we're trying to get a hold of. We have this person. So the next 12 months it's going to change here quickly. But right now, what's for sure happening is Ducks Unlimited, the Do You Conserve series that we're producing, and then the Bassmaster series, obviously. And now
Yeah.
it's really just how much can we balance, and then how much can we add on top of that, until we're getting to the point where we're okay. We need to hire somebody to handle this much. And um, I would say the next 12 months, to answer your question, is more business building, and hopefully by 2026 and 27, we've gotten to the point where, okay, we've got our main group of people that we're really working with,
Yeah.
to execute these projects.
So, so when you say we, are you still working hand in hand with Latondras Media, or is this
So
all freelance work on
this is
your side?
all. This is all. So we actually, Jake and I, or sorry, Colin and I, Colin Mulligan. He's 25. He's out of Golden. He's who I work closely with now.
Ah, okay.
We started a media production company called Stonehouse Studios, and that's what we do all of our Ducks Unlimited stuff with.
Ah, okay.
And then the Bassmaster, for me, the Bassmaster stuff is still freelance,
Yeah.
and then so the Ducks Unlimited stuff has really taken up almost all of Stonehouse Media's time. And then in addition, there's a few other clients that we're working with on marketing. Um, And then so when I refer to as we, I'm talking about me and Colin. And
Cool.
so he's the one that handles all the entrepreneurial stuff, and I'm the one who handles all the post production and media side of things. And between the two of us, we've gotten to the point where it's like, okay, we know we have to do this. We're going to do this, and we need to call this person and talk to this person and join this meeting. And it's never boring. It's definitely
Yeah.
never boring because it is fun because now I'm, the things that Jake has taught me are now being applied to my own business.
Yeah.
And now we're trying to run. Now I'm doing it on my own, and it's super eye opening. And this is really, I think the next 12 months is really when Jake's, lessons that he was trying to teach me about business when I was 18, 19, 20 are really going to come into fruition. And this is when I'm
Yeah.
going to call Jake probably several times this year and say, hey, I just want to let you know, it finally makes sense about what you said 2 years ago.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's so cool.
So it is cool. It's definitely another big leap of faith, right? Like you've now you're a business owner and you're doing all the things that I had no understanding of 6 months ago, and now I'm like, okay, I think we can do this, and
Yeah.
it's super exciting, and I think that's a big motivator, and I hope that motivation, never goes away. And I'm sure you're in the same spot. Like you started a podcast. I think that's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why'd you do that?
Dude, I don't know. Like it was I always had an itch to talk to people who are doing something similar to what I'm doing, and just like, man, the way I describe it to people is like it's the type of conversations that I would have if I was trying to meet up with these people over a cup of coffee at a shop and trying to pick their brain about how they operate and what I can learn from it. And that's how I'm operating this whole deal, is that you're in Colorado. I can't meet up with you to go grab a cup of coffee
Yeah.
and learn about how you operate and how you do things. So this is like my way of doing that. And hopefully it's providing value for others, because everyone, like you said before, does creative work differently, and it's just cool to learn from others. And this has been a really cool platform to do it, because now I kind of have an excuse to hit people up who I would never even dream of talking to. um for example, like Craig Francis, who is now the VP of brand, if I got that right, over at Ultraview Archery.
Mhm.
And dude, he's like a guy I would never have been able to reach out to go sit down and take time out of his day to sit down with him one on one and ask him about business, ask him about life, ask him about how he does things. And all of a sudden, he was actually putting a request out to go on people's shows. And right away, I freaking messaged him. I was like, dude, like, I'd love to have you on. Nobody listens to this shit. So if you hate it, it's like no, no sweat. And he said yes. And it was a great episode. Learned a lot from him. And hopefully other people took some stuff from it too. So to me, it's just a cool avenue for me to learn. Really, that's like,
No, I think that's awesome. I really do.
yeah,
I think that it's so cool to watch you grow. Like, now I've just associated you with Lee Livesey. Like, oh, there's Lee Livesey, there's Jesse, right? And I think that's
yeah,
awesome. And I think that it's really cool because like I've known you for like 2 years now, but this is like really our first, conversation we've had in depth. That's not like, oh, I need to go, shoot this
I
arrow,
know, yeah,
right? So it's like, I think that experience is awesome. But yeah, right back to what you're saying is like this this line of work for whatever reason is like the main consensus is you're meeting people that you would have no business meeting otherwise, right? It's like I don't know anything
yeah,
about how to run, Silicon Valley bourbon company, and then all of a sudden I find myself in a meeting and he's explaining, things that I would just never learn, and it's because I have a camera. Like there was a tool that got me in the
hmm,
ring. Now what
yeah,
can I learn, right? And same thing
yeah,
with you. It's like same thing with. I mean, I know nothing about bass fishing, and every day I find myself in a situation where the top of the top bass fishermen in the world,
yeah,
you're around them every day, but I don't know anything about it, so I just learn a little
yeah,
bit every time I go.
yeah.
Um, And I mean, it's just any situation, right? So I think it's really cool, and I think it's cool that you started the podcast because this is a great excuse for me to not be editing for 2 hours.
Well, I'm glad to feed into your procrastination. That's awesome.
Yes, yes. No, it's been
How,
great. It's been great.
like how important do you think like self-drive and discipline is in this line of work where you're fending for yourself and being willing to like how do I say this? Yeah, I mean just self-drive and discipline. Like how much does that mean to
It's
what
everything.
what we're doing?
It's everything.
Yeah.
Discipline. You need to be disciplined, and you need to do it when you don't want to do it. And
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that's the biggest part about discipline, that you can have is like you don't want to get up in the morning, and you don't want to go out and film for 7 hours, 8 hours. You don't want to edit for 3 more days. You don't want to do this. Do it anyways
Yeah.
because you'll be
Yeah.
better afterwards. And it's the self drive. The self drive. I think the motivation comes and goes, and
Mhm.
but the discipline should be your straight line, right? Like maybe one day I'm excited to get up and start editing. Like something happened, I saw something, I'm ready to go,
Yeah.
right? It's not that hard that day, but the next day might be. So I better be
Yeah.
disciplined because I can't give my 110 one day and then 20% the next day. I need to give it everything every day.
Yeah.
I think the discipline really, it's so much easier said than done, and you have to force yourself to get in some sort of routine or some sort of habit to just because when you kind of want something, anything is an excuse. When you really
Mhm.
want something, there's not anything can happen in life, and you're gonna do it anyways. So, um, don't make excuses. If you really want it, you'll know, and you won't make excuses for it. Like I mean, and I'm bad. I can be bad about it sometimes. It's like, oh, I need to go do this, but I know that at the end of the day, like that's just not. I can't. I
Yeah.
just literally can't. I cannot afford to not do this.
Yep. Yeah, I hear that. I got a little baby downstairs right now that I
Yep.
can't I can't fuck this up because guess what? There's a lot to lose.
Yep.
And
Yep. You don't have a
it's a
choice.
so that's a good motivation too, along with the passion side of it is dude, you just got to make it work. And like
Yep.
how would you say or what would your thoughts be around people see what you do and they're like, dude, that's so cool. Like you get to travel, you get to hunt, fish, capture these amazing photos and videos of these birds that out in like St. Paul Island and friggin' Alaska and all this stuff. Uh, but on the other side of that, how important is embracing the suck in this line of
Dude,
work?
that
Because
was my line, dude. That's my
yeah,
line. I love that line because embracing the suck is embracing the journey. Like that is your
yeah,
story. You're writing your story every day, and
mm-hmm,
I mean, if every day was happy go lucky, then you wouldn't know what a good day was.
yeah,
So you appreciate you understand the bad days, so you can appreciate the good days. And
mm-hmm,
I love it when it sucks because the character building, first of all, the character building afterwards is just immense and it's powerful and
yeah,
it's beautiful. And I don't really, like I said, like if every day was good, I wouldn't appreciate this line of work. And I think that those bad days really shape you into who you are, and it really make you do some soul searching too. Like you
oh
figure
yeah,
out real quick how bad do you really want this? Like how bad do you want to be a camera guy? Is really
yeah,
like you want sleep. No, you spent your entire life savings on that $10,000 camera. You're taking out in the middle of the ocean in Cold Bay, Alaska, or wherever you are. It's blowing 30 mile an hour and it's 10 degrees outside, and everything you've got is in jeopardy. Like those days, I love those days.
mm-hmm,
Hindsight, it shows you where you are.
yeah. No, it's there's so many situations like that where sure the final product in terms of the episode or the reel that you put out on Instagram or whatever it looks badass, but most of the time it's there's not much action going on. Like
Yeah.
on the fishing side, there's not a fish being caught every 5 minutes. Like I'll go sometimes you're sitting down in wherever Alabama, it's 110 degrees
Oh,
outside. The
that sucks.
the carpet on the boat is singeing because it's so damn hot. There's no fish being caught. You're literally roasting there, and then there's 6 hours of that going down, and all of a sudden the moment happens where the fish is being caught, and the action's going down, and that's when, but you got to go through that six
Yeah,
hours of ridiculous heat and exhaustion because you've been doing it for 2 weeks, and like there's a lot of that too. Like
yeah,
it's not all
no,
uh
yeah.
perfect.
No, and at the end of the day, you make a product and you can be proud of it. I think that's really
Yeah,
why we do it. I think we're all chasing that high of like how we all want to be better. Everyone wants to be the best that they can be, whether it's, building reels or documentaries or full length feature films.
yeah,
Uh, you go through 99% of shitty hard labor for 1% of a final product that you can hang your hat on and be like, yeah, I did that. I
yeah,
think I think that's really at the end of the day what we're all after, and it makes me forget about all the suck, because then you see it and you're like, wow, like that is powerful for me and I'm proud.
yeah.
Um, and I don't know how you feel about that. Do you feel any different or
No,
the
that's the
same?
number one thing. You got to go through it to, and you learn that too. Like for me starting out, I was so green in everything I was doing. I didn't understand what a tournament day in bass fishing looked like. I didn't understand what a lot of the hunting stuff I do now looks like, and then you slowly learn like it's not action 100% of the time, and but if you go through it, you learn more about yourself because you learn, hey, I could go through some shitty situations and be cold, be wet, be hot, be like very uncomfortable, and come out on the other side of it. And then all of a sudden you got this cool product that you get out to the world, and people eat it up, and you're like, okay, like I did that. Like it, and then you build onto the next project. But I'd imagine, was Alaska some of the worst that you've seen in terms of shitty weather and
No.
having to embrace the suck?
Okay, there's two times. There's been two times. One was in the Sabine River, on a Bassmaster trip last year. Was bad. Was it two? Might have been two, yeah, 2 years ago. That was bad. Like
Really?
like so hot. I mean,
Oh, hot. Okay.
I was freaking miserable, and I was a live camera, so the
Yeah.
product is live television is so much different than anything I do, right? And
Yeah.
it's you have, I mean, it's a full blown, you've got producers, you've got a director in your ear, they're calling cameras, so the product is actively being made. So
Yeah.
I don't get the satisfaction of like, okay, I did this from step one to all the way to the end, right? So I'm just
Hmm.
sitting there just getting beat down by the sun, and it's rough. I mean, it's just horrible. Mosquitoes, it's getting sunburned. Like, I'm super pale. I'm in pain, and that sucks. Now the other time was last year. We were in west eastern Colorado, and it was blowing 45 miles an hour, and the wind chill was negative 35. Right, it
Oh
was
my
so cold.
God.
My camera, the frame rate on my camera was making lines like it wouldn't even like I could barely.
Wow.
And it was like, this is legit cold. Like, any bare skin you had on your body, if it was getting beat by the wind, like, you were susceptible to frostbite for sure.
Wow.
And we sat out in that cornfield for probably 8 hours from 9 a.m. to 3, and then the birds didn't even. It was so cold the birds didn't fly till like 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So we sat out
Yeah.
there staring at blue skies with no show, because it was like the last day. We had no good hunts. We had
Wow.
to we had to do this, and by the grace of God, the light switch came on. The birds hadn't flown in a few days, and they were hungry. We were in a cornfield. And we were in the right spot at the right time, and we beat the brakes off of them. And for about an hour, or for about 30 minutes, I forgot how cold it was,
Yeah.
and it was thrilling. And then by the next day, we're all sitting there just wore out, and then the episode came out. It was incredible, and I could I was really proud about that.
Yeah.
Um, and that's just one of the things about, embracing the suck, and even hindsight, after all the editing and the and the revisions and the back and forth and the storytelling, the story was the weather, and it was
Yeah.
brutal.
Yeah. No, that's crazy. On the photo side, um, maybe explain like that picture over your shoulder, for example. Was that one of the ones that I remember you talking about on a podcast or something when you were like, you took that when you were like 14 or something and it
Yeah,
made
so
the cover of a
there's
magazine?
yeah, so there's a pinto right there. I was 14, and then there's a dog right there coming back with a wood duck, a double-banded wood duck. It was a special hunt because that was the last it was my last hunt in California before I moved, and
Oh, wow.
I was with my brother, and we had a phenomenal hunt. And then the last bird, like to finish out our limit, was that one. Comes back, I'm taking pictures, and I had no business shooting the bird. Like it was like screaming by. I was like, oh, I panicked and shot, and it comes back. I'm shooting photos, and um, I mean the emotion that I had being there with my brother and getting to share that moment was just an experience in itself. And then for that picture to become the cover of a magazine is just the cherry on top. And there's a cool story inside about how I was there with my brother and how that came out to be. And then 3 months later, I was in my truck driving to Colorado to start a new life.
Yeah,
Um, so that one holds a near and dear place in my heart. But yeah, I was 18 for that one. I was 14 for the pintail. I
that's
just got I just
crazy.
got dumb lucky with the pintail. He did something cool, and he was like sitting on
Yeah.
away from me, and I was like, oh, that's sick.
What for like legit wildlife photography like that where you're not on a hunt necessarily,
Nope.
but like what goes into capturing really good wildlife photography for people who don't understand? Like I know
So
that you're going out there sitting in blinds, stuff like that, but like for people who don't understand, what does it take to capture a photo like that of wildlife in their natural habitats?
I mean, you just gotta clear out the whole day because you ain't leaving
Mm,
from sun up to sundown. Like you're in one spot. I have a layout blind that I use, and I cut it out. And basically for birds, for ducks, I don't use any decoys. Like I put myself in a
wow.
situation where it's 100% natural, right? The birds are gonna do what the birds are gonna do. Um, and I don't want anything changing that because and I'll scout it out for a few days before. Okay, they're using this creek. The wood ducks in particular. Like I had a spot in California where these family group of wood ducks just hit every single day. So I made my whole blind, set up some sticks for him to stand, and then I showed up at 4 in the morning. I waited for sunlight because the birds would fly in before sunlight, and I can't walk in when the
Yeah.
birds are there because then they leave
Yeah.
and they don't come back. So I get there at 4 a.m. I sit there for 2 hours till shooting light, and then shooting light like photography light,
Yeah.
and then I let them do their thing. And if they want to swim over there or do something and pick up acorns, those are the moments where you're fully immersed in something that's in very wild. Wild birds doing wild things. You don't have decoys influencing them. You're not calling at them. They are literally just doing, and I love that because you start appreciating. Birds, they have personalities. Okay, that one over there, he's pissed off at this one that he's just stole his chick, and they're running around, and like they have personalities, and you can kind of draw a bond with individual birds, which is funny to think about
Yeah.
because you know those birds don't even know I'm here, let alone don't appreciate like the way that I appreciate them. It's definitely a one-sided love,
Yeah.
uh, but I'm okay with that. And but the patience just comes with the appreciation. Like you forget that you're even being patient because what are you waiting for? That what's happening is meant to happen. So just
Yeah.
wait for something that you love. And yeah, I think the wildlife stuff is really just more therapeutic for me. And a day shooting birds with a camera is sometimes better for me than getting them after them with a gun because you don't. It's really just why do we do this? We love the birds, we love the animals, and we
Yeah.
hunters and fishermen have a deeper appreciation for the animals than your average Joe. The people that are actually pursuing that game,
Yeah.
it's really appreciated. So it's just another side of it, and I really do love it. I don't do it near as much as I used to. Real life gets in the way sometimes, but
Yeah. Well, it goes back to that business
yeah,
transition now, right? Would
yeah.
you say any covers that you've made on like wildlife magazines have been from photos that you've just gone out for fun to take? Has that been most of
Yeah,
them?
yeah. I mean, one, I, I've I've got a few now. I think, yeah, most of them have been. I mean, all of it's been for fun. There's not been a single cover that's come
That's
from
cool. Yeah.
Um, like even the hunting stuff, like all those hunts were fun hunts, and all the
Wow.
wildlife was just me going out. Like I got dumb lucky. I saw a bunch of mallards on the side of a river bank, and as soon as I got out of the truck, they all explode, and I took a picture, and now it's like the cover of a magazine. So like it's funny
Yeah.
how it works, and uh, I just literally how I've always done it is I post. This is how I started when I was 14. I took pictures and I posted them on Instagram. That's what I always did. I just share it with the world. If you like it, you like it. If you don't, I
Yeah.
I, I don't mind. I'm blessed to have the amount of uh traction and people actually do appreciate it. But if I can take one picture that speaks to somebody for whatever reason and they can relate to it somehow, then I'm gonna continue doing it.
Yeah. So other than being a incredible photographer, when it comes to getting your stuff on the front of a magazine, how has that happened for you? Are you actively reaching out and being like,
Yes.
here's the stuff I put together? Like, what
So
is that?
yeah.
How does your shit end up on a magazine?
So there's some publications that do have like a approval process that you actually go on their website and submit. And then I've gained a great relationship with Skip Knowles from Wildfire Magazine, and
Hmm.
now he'll actually message me now and say, hey, like, hey, do you have any photo? I'm looking for something similar to this and this,
That's cool.
and then
Yeah.
I'll email him what I got, and I'd say 10% of the time, 5% of the time he asks me that question, one will actually land, right? And
Yeah.
it's so cool to see your photo on the cover of a magazine. It really is, and I'm super blessed. I luckily Skip Knowles and we've become great friends, and my first cover came. Actually, I actually have it right here. This one, this is my first one I took. It's my black lab. His name's
So
Crash.
badass. Yeah.
I took that with my mom's camera. It was a Canon XT,
You took it with that camera?
and yeah,
Oh my God.
and the picture was my dog sitting on my bed in my room, and I had my lights off, but the window light was like hitting the side of his face, and for whatever, I was like literally practicing taking pictures of like through my window, like how my autofocus worked, how did manual mode work. Like this is
Wow.
very very early, and I just panned over, and he was looking at me like that, and I just snapped a picture. I edited it and posted it on Instagram, and actually, the gentleman's name was Joe Gonzell that found that photo because I posted on Instagram, and
Yeah.
he messaged me and he was like, "Hey, do you think that we could use this in a magazine?" And I was like,
Wow.
"Yes." So, and that's how that happened. And I was 14 for that. Um, and then they mailed it to me, and I mean, off the wall, ecstatic, right? And what do you do, right? And then since that experience we've stayed in touch, and that's how we've done some trips together now, and I've got some stuff in their magazines, and it's super awesome.
That's crazy. In that photo, that black lab, can you tell in the dog's eye reflection that it's in your room?
Oh yeah, look, you can see the square window windowsill, right?
Yeah,
You can, so yeah,
that's crazy.
that's funny. Yeah, absolutely, you can tell it's through my window. But that's uh that's the beauty of photography and videography, is the world does not exist outside your little rectangle you got. uh
Yeah, just like me showing you what my studio actually looks like. It's just an
yeah,
unfinished loft above my garage
yeah,
and
yeah.
not an actual room. Um, okay, I want to switch gears a little bit. So I've been seeing a lot of your stuff come up with Shen, and
Yeah,
like I think it was at NWTF. There was like a big billboard friggin'
yeah.
sized
They put a
image
picture
of
of me on.
you right wearing the new boots or whatever the heck it
Yeah,
was.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, there's a couple things I want to ask about this. One is about like approach to trade shows and stuff, but another is you mentioned that with Shen, for example, you're on like some kind of a content retainer with them.
Yeah. So
So how do you go about structuring, maybe for people who don't know, how do you go about structuring a content retainer with a brand like that where you're providing stuff monthly? Like how does it look with a brand
yeah,
like that?
actually, it wasn't with Shin that I've done this for, but I do have a monthly, you know, tracker essentially. It's like a basically like a product list, right? What am I going to offer for those for a month or what? I have different packages. So I have a 7 day package. So like for 7 days a week or for 7 days a month, you're going to
Yeah.
receive this and it costs this. For 14 days, this is what it costs, is what you're going to receive. For 30 days is what you're going to is so on and so forth. Um, do it for what you think it's worth. So with a brand like Shin, I take X amount of photos for X amount of price, and they use them however see fit. And I've got a Dropbox that we just supplement
Nice.
photos on every month. Um, and there's a hard number that I have to meet every month, and that's what they do. Whereas like there's another situation where I've got another company where I actually will run their Instagram for the time being for that month and post stuff that I've said, you know, a part of that 14-day
Yeah.
package. But it is monthly, and um, it's great to know like, okay, you're gonna do this for, and you and the client agree we're gonna do this for, let's say, a 2 month trial period, and then if we want to move on, we'll sign a 12 month thing, and we'll reduce the prices because you've agreed to 12 months, and we'll
Nice.
do a better deal. Um, and that's a better way to, because it's nice to know for a freelancer, right? Like, you know, you don't
Yeah.
know where your next paycheck's going to come from. Whereas these monthly retainers, okay, I know on this day of this month we're going to get paid, and that's going
Yeah.
to supplement, you know, these expenses, and it's going to be able to allow me to run my business. Because running a production company, you've got, you know, you have to invest in the latest camera equipment, you know, editing softwares. Those are uh,
Yeah.
monthly subscriptions. You know, there's a lot of expenses that come in, and so when you finally get, you know, a paycheck after your first paycheck after 3 months, you're like, okay, now I have to pay off all these things, and
Yeah.
then I can figure out where I'm at after that. Whereas these monthly retainers for me are really good to know that every month we've got money coming in, because every month we've got money going out, and
Yeah.
we need to be in the plus.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, if somebody was trying to start, you know, doing a business, I mean, go to your local restaurant, you know, whatever. Somebody wants, you know, Olive Garden wants to do an Instagram or whatever, you know, go to
Yeah.
these local places around your town. Even high school sports, right? They love the content. They love the club
Hmm.
sports things, colleges, whatever small business locally you can get your hands on, just to get some cash going, and then you've a good rapport with that business owner, because you're doing something for them that's going to help their business, and they're doing something for you that's going to help your business, and then that's how you grow.
Yeah. So, because on the waterfowl guiding side of things, is that and with Shen, like, is that a situation where you're already out there shooting for that guide service, and then you kind of
Yeah,
struck up a
so
relationship with Shen where you said, "Hey, I'm out here. All the guys are wearing Shen gear. Like, why don't I provide X amount of content per month?" Did it line up like that, or was this you directly with Shen and
yeah,
you going out?
this was definitely separate. Like
Okay.
my roommate Colton runs Front Range Guide Service. They have their own deal with
Yeah.
Shin, and I run the freelance side of production. So I'm actively shooting photos,
Yeah.
and they'll send me some products, and then I'll shoot those photos for
Cool.
whatever reason. Um, Now it does work out sometimes where, like, let's say, you know, Colton's on a hunt and everyone's wearing shin gear, and I'm like, hey, can I come out because we've got, you know, this jacket coming out, you know, next month. So get one guy to wear it. We'll shoot photos, and then there'll be days where like I actually set aside, you know, whole days for a product shoot, and I'll get a buddy of mine to put on a bunch of clothes, and uh,
Nice.
so it's always, so sometimes it's situational. Sometimes I'm actually setting aside days to do it.
Yeah.
um, as long as I meet that number is my task, and as long as all the product that they're sending me is getting, you know, photographed, then I'm meeting my deliverables. So, and
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
the same thing with the monthly retainers. Is once you build your package, make sure you're meeting your deliverables. If your 7 day package is you're going to provide, you know, 5 photos and 2 reels, that means every month you got to make sure you're doing that, because then if
Yeah.
not, if you guys actually get down to sign a contract, you're in breach of contract, and that's not a good look.
Yeah. For sure. No, that's interesting. And so obviously, I said I saw that all go down at when you were at NWTF. So other than all like the fun partying and stuff that goes on in Nashville at that show, which I hope to experience with you one day.
Yeah, yeah, you will.
What other purpose were you down there for? Are you going to I guess the main question in this is like, how do you approach a trade show in terms of you and your business?
I mean, you just got to understand what is your goal? Like, are you there to just hang out? Or are you there to build clients? And if your
Hmm.
goal is to build clients, go. I mean, talk to people. Like, this the point of a trade show is to meet people. That's why people go to these things.
Yeah.
I mean, there's booths that sell product, but and maybe there's a brand that you really want to work with, right? I would, if it was me, and if I could tell myself back when I was 18 years old, like, don't get so caught up on the brand you want to work with. Get Immerse yourself in the experience of actually gaining, momentum, because like you can't go from bottom to the top in
Yeah.
one go. Maybe you will. Maybe you're just crazy good and you've got crazy work ethic. And I'm not saying it's impossible, but everybody, and don't sell yourself short, right? Like, if you're there to meet people and gain clients, and like I was there and I was trying to pitch several companies my monthly retainer, and I got a lot of no's.
Yeah.
And you got to get used to, like, no, we've already got, somebody doing this, like, we don't need this now, but we can do this, right? Where it's like that also,
Yes. Yeah.
right? And then
Yeah.
then you're allowed to, then you're able to work with them there. You're like, okay, so the answer is not really no, it's just no for this, but maybe we can do this instead, right? Where it's like,
Yeah.
no, we don't need somebody, you know doing all of our content, but maybe we need somebody who responds to our DMs on our Instagram, right? And then maybe that wasn't what you're after, but hey, you've got an in,
Yeah.
and that happens all the time. And there's startup companies in at those trade shows that they've got nothing and they just need somebody to help them, and maybe you can be that avenue. And
Yeah.
that's go to a trade show. Like when we went to NWTF for the first time, Colin and I were there together, and we hung out, we met the Shin guys, and Grayson Morris, he was one of the photographers for them, and he was the one who took that picture of me on the thing, and he was like, "You
Yeah.
should sign it," and it was a lot of fun. So you get
Yeah.
those fun experiences there, and it's not all work, it's not all serious, but then you do get yourself into those conversations with companies or brands or sometimes even individual people that are like,
Yeah.
"Hey." And you got to make the jump. Like, they're not going to come up to you. They don't know what you offer. You got to tell
Yeah.
them. And you
Yeah.
got to tell them, like, hey, I love what you're doing here. I think this is what we could do instead, or this is what we could do better. And
Yeah.
uh, and you'll find yourself in a lot of situations and conversations that go that way.
No, that's awesome. Did you go to a show like that or that show specifically with a specific hit list of brands that you wanted to approach and then also have somewhat of a plan for them, very bare bones, maybe that you could run through where you could give examples on how you would provide value, or are you just there to shake hands and make
Zero. I had
introductions?
I had zero plan. And
Okay.
the best part was I was not tied down to anything, right?
Yeah.
And that, like, for example, there was this one gentleman we were talking to, and uh he does a lot of elk hunting, and he runs an outfitter for elk hunting.
Yeah.
I have no business being elk hunting. And then we got to talking to him, and I was just like, man, like, or Colin was really the one who made the leap, and he was like, man, that sounds really cool. What if we did this? He was like, no, I don't really need that, but what I do need, and I don't know if you guys could do this, but I do want to do a feature film about this story that happened. He told us the whole story, and
Damn. Yeah.
yes, we can absolutely do that. And we
Yeah.
showed him some of our stuff, and that right there, that's one thing that happened. And then that happened, that was the first day.
Yeah.
That was the first guy we talked to. And then all of a sudden, we're down the line 2 days into the event. We're like, holy cow, like, this is really good, but like, I need some water because my voice is
Yeah. Yeah.
but yeah, it's super awesome. And you don't have to wait for trade shows to do that either. While the
Yeah.
trade shows are great because it's in person, you get to talk to them, and they see who you are. You can also do it online, like message them and do it. Like, you don't have to wait till NWTF or SCI or
Yeah.
ICAP to go talk to these brands that. And the best part about it is, like, a small startup may be way more beneficial for you in the long run than maybe one of the big guys that you see all over Instagram and Facebook, right? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
be, build partner relationships, and don't do it for the money or whatever else you need. Be willing to grow with somebody, because at the end of the day, it's going to help you. If you're running a production company or you're doing media and you want to tell stories, you should be helping them and they should be helping you, and you
Yeah.
guys should work together.
Yeah. No, I think that's super good tactical advice. And I am a firm believer in try to align yourself with people and brands that are doing stuff that you're truly passionate about, because it shows in the work. If you're just doing it for the money, it shows, because you're not
Yeah,
going to work your hardest
exactly.
to create something
Exactly.
that's different from what's out there and that inspires people. So yeah, that part's very important.
Yeah, I
Um,
agree.
I guess we can kind of almost end with this. Like, I got enough questions for a whole other podcast episode, so I need you on again. But
Okay.
I want to kind of end it here. So, I guess in keeping with the spirit of this podcast, like what do you find yourself doing to kind of continue to hone your creative craft when it comes to photography, video editing, all of that?
I mean, what I continue to do is I always go back to doing it because I love it. Like, I feel like if every experience you have is for work, then you're gonna get burnt out. So you also have to set aside days to like remind yourself, okay, why am I doing this?
Mm,
What am I doing it for? And so like there'll definitely be days where I set aside where I'm like, okay, this is my reset day, and I'll actually grab a camera and then go shoot something just for fun, right? And
yeah.
go with no pressure of a storyline or whatever. Sometimes I'll just go fly my drone because it looks pretty outside, right? And then I
Hmm.
because then I just it reminds me like I love capturing moments that are never going to be told again. Or done again. And I think that's a for me that's it's just a good refresher to have those days or those moments where you're doing it and you're doing it because you like it and you love it, rather than having the pressure of work and a timeline or a deadline of editing. And that's how I guess keep my stuff honed in, if that answers it.
No, I love it. And because you can get ate up with it with work, where you feel the pressure of not being able to take the time for yourself to work on passion projects, because I got a queue of edits I got to get through and deliverables I got to get out to clients and stuff. So I in the last 2 years of doing this full time on my own, that's something that I have and am struggling with,
Mhm.
just for the simple fact that I have no room to allow myself to do that, because I got to keep a roof over my head. I got to
Right.
keep things going. First 2 years, I'm just kind of getting my feet under me and starting to run. But now, like going into this year, I'm able to optimize a little bit more, and I'm actively trying to create some space to take on some passion projects. Like, I got a big itch I want to scratch in like the fitness space. So there's some people that I'm
Nice.
about to probably reach out to and just try to do something fun and like for free. Like I without the constraint of deadlines,
Mhm.
and just do something where you got full creative control and do it for fun and not for money. So I'm slowly gonna kind of push to do that as well. And even then, like on the hunting and fishing side, I've really taken a step back in doing that stuff for myself for fun. Anything that is related to that these days has been work,
Right.
holding the camera. And I know I still love hunting and fishing, and I would need to I know I need to do it more myself, because I'm starting to lose it a little bit,
Mhm.
where I need to get back to it and just do it for fun, because I do love it, and I can't always associate it with work, and I'm sure you struggle with that too.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, the you just gotta remind yourself, like, do it for almost actually all of what you're doing for work is gonna be for somebody else with
Yeah,
production, right? Like,
exactly.
telling somebody else's story, you're filming somebody else's tournament, and that's all great. I love that. I think it's super important. But you also have to set aside, like, you also got to do it for yourself too, sometimes. And that's just a
Yeah,
good refresher, at least for me. Is like sometimes I'll go do something for myself. I'll go take 3 hours and go film some ducks on the pond because I love it, and it's just a good refresher. Then the next time I
yeah,
come back, then I've got something that's fun to do. then after I'm done with that, I'll go back to what's work, and then I feel a little bit better about, you know, going out and doing that instead of it just being work, 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 work. But that's also part of the discipline thing that you got to push past too. So it's a
Yeah.
double sword for sure.
Yeah. No, I love it, man. I think that's perfect way to end it and put a bookmark in it for the next time.
Yeah,
And
I
I think
definitely want to
next,
get on this podcast again. This was a lot of fun.
yeah, no, I appreciate it, man. I appreciate the time coming on, and I'm about to see you in about a week's time down at the Bassmaster Classic.
Yeah,
Hopefully, hopefully we'll have a night to put our boots on and go hang out and have some drinks together or something, and
would love to do that.
get out of the work cycle while we're down there. Hopefully, but you and I both know how crazy the classic is, so there's a fat chance that that happening. But regardless, I'll see you there. Hopefully on the docks in the morning, and give you a big hug, man.
Perfect. Well, I look forward to it. But real quick, let's get a picture. I just went on the podcast. Ready? Give me a thumbs up.
I'll give you the Borat.
Hell yeah. All right.
uh,
Jesse, thanks so much for having me on. This was a lot of fun. Go do your thing. Remember to do some stuff for yourself sometime.
yeah,
And I look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks.
yes, sir. See you, Brandon.
All right. See you, Jesse.
All right, bye, everybody.